So first of all, good afternoon, everybody. It's an enormous pleasure to welcome you to this event that we're all extremely excited about. My name is Leon Tikly. I'm a professor in education here in the graduate school at the University of Bristol. And it's my enormous pleasure to be chairing the session this afternoon. We have a great panel of speakers who will be introducing our exciting new book series, which is Bristol Studies in Comparative and International Education. So this really is a momentous event, and we're very pleased that you're able to join us for it. Before I introduce our first speaker, just a couple of housekeeping points. Just to say that the session is being recorded, so please be aware of that. And the second thing is we will be keeping as much time as we can for questions and answers at the end. So please do pop any questions that you might have in the chat, and Christy and her team will collate those, and we'll try to make sure that the panel have a chance to answer them. We've got a fantastic panel from all over the world today, and I'll introduce them as we go through. But for now, I'd like to start off with Professor Michael Crossley, who's Emeritus Professor in International Comparative Education here in the school and a founder editor for the series. Over to you, please, Michael.
Thank you very much, Leon, and it's really lovely to see so many people out there in the audience. Welcome, everyone. For this introduction, I felt it appropriate to provide a little background on the book series itself. We're launching this new initiative today with the title, as Leon just said, Bristol Studies in Comparative and International Education. But that sort of title is building upon, it's really hard to count this, looking back 30 years of previous experience with what we call the Bristol Papers in education. And that was our sort of earlier series that has developed into the current books that had two phases of development. Firstly, back in 1991-92, we launched the Bristol Papers as a home-produced University of Bristol School of Education series, and it looked something like that in the grey series, as we sort of called it, because of the cover, the sort of the branding. I was the founding series editor, supported by Roger Garrett and other colleagues in then in the School of Education. And this is really interesting looking back, but the rationale for the series was similar to the one we have today. And it was this: it was to emphasize multidisciplinary work that bridges theory, policy, and practice, while supporting early career researchers, North-South partnerships, and the publication of research led by colleagues in and from the Global South. Then in the year 2000, the series entered a second, more professional publishing phase of development in collaboration with Symposium Books, based in Abingdon, close to Oxford. We had excellent support from the publisher, Roger Osborne King. And that's an example of the branding, the covers for that phase of the series of Bristol Papers. Books from the Symposium phase are still available on their website, so do look at that, and it'd be nice if people sort of connect back to Roger Osborne King, who's been a real supporter in the transition to where we are now with Bristol University Press. As Roger Osborne King moved towards retirement, we began discussions with Philippa, who's here today, Philippa Grand at Bristol University Press, and this led to a very appropriate and timely transition of publisher. And today's series launch sees a new team of series editors, and that consists of myself, Leon Tikly, Professor Leon Tikly, Dr. Angeline Barrett, and Dr. Julia Paulson. And in addition, we have a distinguished editorial board of 25 internationally recognized colleagues. That's really what I want to say as a starter, but we'll be able to develop and look at how things are looking for the future of the new series. So it's therefore my pleasure to pass you back to Leon, to Philippa, to Angeline, and to Julia to tell you more about the current and future aims and aspirations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, very much for that. And of course, it's entirely appropriate that we start with you, given that you've really been involved in the Bristol Papers right from the outset. So we're really glad that we're able to have you at our helm. I'd like to now hand over to Philippa Grand, who is representing Bristol University Press. So Philippa, when you're ready, please do go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Leon. Yeah, so I'm Philippa Grand. I'm a publisher at Bristol University Press, and I will be working with the series editors on this new series. And I'm absolutely delighted that BUP is the new home for this series that has such a long history. I wanted to give you a bit of a background on the press itself. We were originally founded in 1996 as Policy Press, as a department within the University of Bristol. And in 2006, we launched a second imprint, Bristol University Press. We are a not-for-profit publisher. We're a fairly small press of around 50 people, but we have a wide international sales and marketing reach and strong presence on social media. We publish around 300 books per year in a range of formats and publish around 16 journals. Our focus is primarily on the social sciences, and we are particularly known for our publishing on global social challenges and social justice, with an interest in work seeking to influence policy and practice. We have flexible pricing models too, so for all our publications, even if publishing in hardback only, we will publish a low-priced ebook edition to allow for individual purchases. We're very ambitious for the new series at the press and aim to make this the leading series in its field. And in particular, we want the series to be part of forging a fairer intellectual endeavour between global north and south, and actively look to encourage publications that emanate from or are led from the south. Indeed, the first book currently under review for the series exemplifies our ambitions on this front, in that 14 of a total of 20 authors are based at African institutions. So that's really exciting. At BUP, we are part of the Research for Life programme, which provides low and middle income countries with access to research publications at low or no cost. We're also currently looking at our open access programme and how that might better support scholars working in this field. And there are various other initiatives that we are developing within the press on this front. If you're thinking about submitting a proposal, then firstly, either me or one of the series editors would be very pleased to discuss your ideas or plans that are at any stage of development, from initial thoughts to something more developed. You would then need to submit a proposal form, and I'll put some links in the chat to our proposal forms and some further information online. Our proposals are subject to rigorous peer review to ensure the high quality of the work we publish. So we'll be reviewed by the series editors, but also by external advisors, and all our publications are subject to final approval by an academic board of scholars made up of scholars from across the University of Bristol, and all typescripts as well are also sent for review ahead of publication. We don't necessarily need sample chapters submitted with the proposal, although if they're available, that's fantastic. But we do look for detailed chapter outlines that will give reviewers a clear sense of the project and how it will develop. Also very important is to provide a clear sense of where the book sits in the market and how it will contribute to scholarship and push debates forward. And we are accepting proposals for single or multi-authored research monographs, edited collections, and also short form books, i.e. books of between 30 to 50,000 words. And those books are on a slightly shorter publication schedule, so can publish more quickly. I'll also put my email details in the chat now, and I'm happy to answer any questions at all today or at any time about the series, about the press, or about our processes, and I would very much look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philippa, and it's been an absolute delight working with you and Bristol University Press in developing this series. The support you've given us in developing our ideas has been really exemplary, and I think that's reflected in the product, we hope. So thank you for that. Before we go on, I'd just like to acknowledge the range of people that we have in the audience today. People from all over the world, very welcome, from Botswana to New York to St. Lucia. I'd like to, and not forgetting Edinburgh and various other important parts of the world. So I'd like to also give a special acknowledgement to Dame Paulette Louisi, who's in the audience today, is the former Governor General of St. Lucia, and previously worked with Michael. You are very welcome, Paulette, and we're delighted that you're able to join us. If you would like to offer a few words, you're very welcome. Okay, I think you're on mute.
Yes, yes, thank you very much, and for this opportunity. I would like to congratulate Bristol University for, for its sustaining power. Let's put it that way. I was in Bristol 1991 to 1994, and I've kept, sort of close contact with Bristol University, especially through my doctoral supervisor, Dr. Crossley, and working with education in small island states. And congratulations for this new series. I'll try to see whether any of my colleagues and Lucians have proposals that they can submit, so that the work that is being done here could be, available in a wider context. So thank you very much, and all the best for the new series. Good morning, Dr. Crossley and everybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paulette, and sorry to put you on the spot, but I couldn't resist it. I'm sorry, having you in the room. We're delighted. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Angeline Barrett to say a few words from an editorial board point of view.
Hello, everyone. It's a privilege, and it's delightful to be talking to all of you. Yeah, I just want to kind of set out maybe a couple of aspirations that we have for this book series. And I would sum it up by saying that we're really looking for publications that are bold at the same time as having rigor and clarity, and above all, originality. We're looking for publications that do address some of the kind of what are widely recognized as the big challenges of our time. So decolonization is one that is widely being discussed widely at the moment, I know, across a kind of range of country contexts in different ways, and tackling the racism also that's the legacy of empire and all its exploitations. Sustainability and tackling climate change is another, and of course, education is being complicit in the formation of empire, neocolonial relations, and the kind of unsustainability of societies and a kind of global order as it is. And, our field of comparative and international education has been formed and in some ways shaped by these contexts of empire building and unsustainable societies. but it's also been challenging them from within. And of course, you know, Leon has been one of those voices. Arathi Shiprakash has been another, and many of us here. And, you know, so we're encouraging, what we're looking for, I'm going to pick up on this word bold again, is publications that are bold in addressing these large challenges, but also that have an eye on, that are bringing to our attention perhaps some of the overlooked challenges, or that are just throwing a new light on some of the kind of enduring aparias of comparative and international education, the kind of stuck places and the dilemmas that we keep on returning to and need new perspectives on. And I think to do that, what we particularly is important is to have to be welcoming publications from people at all stages of their career. And this has been mentioned before, but one thing I'll draw attention to here is, you know, we're very proud actually that we've got quite a significant number of postdoctoral researchers on our advisory board that bring a kind of fresh perspective on these. And two of them will be speaking a little bit later, Ziba and Artemio Hernandez. And, you know, I also can wear two hats. So I'm sometimes the Deputy Director of our Southwest Doctoral Training Programme, which is a doctoral brings together universities in the southwest of England. And so for those of you who are part of that, those southwest universities and are doing a PhD towards the end or completing, just to say that we will be collaborating with the BUP in a few weeks' time. So keep an eye out to do to run a session specifically about you know, what kind of, whether, how do you make the decision? How do you know if your PhD could become a monograph? And I'll finish on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Angeline, for that. Really, really helpful background and context. Yes, we want to encourage cutting edge topical ideas for books, and we want to encourage our early career researchers. Julia, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for being with us today. It's wonderful to see you and see faces. Thank you for the cameras on, people. That's always much appreciated. It's wonderful to see you, and we're excited to hear your questions and ideas for this series. So I was struggling to condense my excitement into 3 or 4 short minutes. So I tried to think of the top 3 things about the series that I'm really excited about and looking forward to. And those 3 things are publishing brilliant doctoral research, as Angeline just mentioned. We have the privilege to supervise and examine and hear about at conferences the fabulous empirical and theoretical insights of our doctoral colleagues. And I really hope that this series will be a nurturing place to bring those ideas and that research into publication to share more widely. So we're really excited about the series as a venue for publishing emerging doctoral research, and we're already in conversation with a couple of fabulous postdoctoral researchers about moving their work into monographs. The second one is to be a real venue. This is a personal area of excitement, a real venue for publishing research around education, peace, and conflict, which is a key theme for the series. I don't know of another book series devoted to this theme, so I think it will be really exciting for us to have a space to publish particularly in this area and to work with researchers around the world to push our theoretical and empirical insights around peace and conflict and education's role in holding both hope and violence simultaneously. And yeah, really look forward to talking with colleagues about ideas for publications in that area. And again, we're already in conversation with a couple of people about publications that we hope to see come into the series on education, peace, and conflict. And then the third thing is to continue to push boundaries in comparative and international education, like Michael outlined. The Bristol Papers have been doing since their inception. And I think for me, I'm really excited for us to do that by connecting with important discussions happening in comparative and international education and also beyond. We're working on putting together an edited collection for the series that includes the contributions to the recent seminar series that CIRE, the Center for Comparative and International Research in Education, and UNESCO co-hosted on decolonization and sustainable futures. So considering those linkages and some of the challenges that decolonization raises for sustainability and sustainable development agendas. I'm also excited about possibilities for supporting new models of authorship and new forms of creative knowledge sharing. So I think this series is open to thinking about writing that looks different from our traditional understandings of academic writing, and that includes the volume that someone mentioned, I can't remember, Philippa mentioned, with 20 co-authors who are working in a creative co-authorship model, and also thinking about poetry and fiction and visual content within the books. I think we're really interested in creativity in terms of the forms of publications that books will take. And then also, making space to historicize and grapple with complicities like Angeline mentioned in our discipline and in our practices of knowledge production and in the legacies of comparative and international education as they relate to empire, coloniality, and ongoing and enduring injustices. So I hope that this series will be able to do those things, and we really hope it will be the space that you bring your sort of dream publications and dream ideas to you, and that we can help nurture those in a flourishing dialogue. So yeah, it's really exciting, and it's an honor to be part of it. And thanks everyone for joining us to launch it today.
Thank you so much, Julia, and your excitement is infectious and sending shivers down my spine. So that's marvelous. Thank you so much. And as Michael pointed out, we do have a very diverse advisory board, and it's great that we're joined by some of them today, who are going to give us one or two reflections on the series and their aspirations for it. So we're going to start with a video from Professor Fatuma Chege, who's the Pro-Vice Chancellor at Kenyatta University in Kenya. And she was hoping to join us today, but unfortunately, she's been waylaid. She's a very, very, very busy person, but she has very kindly taken the time to record a short video for us. So Christy, when you're ready, please could we have Fatuma's video?
Good afternoon, everybody. I am very delighted to have been invited to this online official launching of Bristol Studies in Comparative and International Studies book series. As requested, I'm happy to share my thoughts on what I consider as promising directions for well-grounded comparative and international studies in education. My experience has taught me that, firstly, comparative and international studies in education can benefit hugely from an understanding of the need to use our voices in dialogue as we seek an understanding of the socio-cultural nuances and traditional context of the local indigenous peoples, as well as exploring a basis for mutual understanding of educational and cultural histories of the scholars with whom we work. Secondly, our God-given voice is a ready-made tool to help us in creating genuine and quality equal partnerships amongst colleague scholars. Voice is also a useful tool in articulating expressions of commitments whose depth of seriousness can be revealed through observation of the combination of tone of voice and body language. Thirdly, the voice enables us to concretize respectful engagements with the local research communities and the participants as they partake in the process of co-production of knowledge, dissemination, and feedback, thus potentially strengthening a sense of ownership of the process and outputs, uptakes, and outcomes. These three approaches can serve as an invaluable catalyst in countering possible cultural clashes or conflicts that may emerge from the different ways of conducting ourselves in a sharing within specific cultural and social contexts or scholarly encounters of a comparative education nature. In my early years of doing comparative education research, I encountered various hitches, and one of them was a near collapse of our joint cross-country East African project covering Tanzania, Ethiopia, Kenya, and one Asia-Pacific country. The project had 2 male researchers from Tanzania, 2 male from Ethiopia, and 2 female from Kenya, while our Asian partners comprised 2 female researchers. During our very first meeting, gender and cultural dynamics played out, and things suddenly went terribly wrong as one of the lead researchers broke down with tears rolling down her cheeks, and she walked out to cry even more. I panicked, asking what was the matter. This question only made matters worse as she continued to cry even more. I tried to establish the source of distress, but to cut a long story short, it turned out that the researchers from the Asian country found the 6 African researchers too loud in their way of talking and less attentive to the other voice. The Asian partners had a clearly controlled, soft-spoken demeanor in which context they perceived and interpreted the other team as being disrespectful. Our choice to introduce dialogue at that particular point with a focus on the emergent cultural concerns saved our project. It has taken me an experiential scholarly journey to develop patience for understanding of the other and keenness to observe and to have self-reflexivity and self-knowledge that is not readily available in textbooks. And as the learning continues, taking advantage of our voices and inviting others to dialogue for cultural understanding has remained the first encounter of good practice activity that is priceless. In this context, therefore, I wish the Bristol Studies in Comparative and International Education book series the successes that it deserves. I also pray that the world will benefit when we all participate in the unfolding journey of this book series. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Wow, what a fantastic contribution from Professor Chege there. And I think that gives you an indication of the caliber of people that we have involved in our editorial board. Apart from being a comparative educationalist, she's also a leading figure in gender studies around the world. So we're delighted that Fatima is able to be on our advisory board. Okay, next up, I'd like to introduce Professor Tanya Singh, who's Associate Professor at Lahore University of Management Sciences in Pakistan. And she works in a range of areas, from religion, ethnicity, and female voice. And again, she reflects exactly the kind of voice that we're delighted to have on our advisory board. So Tanya, over to you, please.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and I'm absolutely honored to be part of the Editorial Advisory Board. I'll keep my comments really short, but I just felt that it was important to highlight how crucial this series is at a time where we need more collaborative scholarship on local and international dimensions of education. For me, the importance placed on not only inviting proposals from early career, junior, and established scholars from across the world, but also the effort taken to ensure that the Editorial Advisory Board embodies regional, theoretical, and methodological diversity really makes this series stand out. There is an openness towards recognizing this diversity, which is clearly evident in the kind of themes being covered, from social, epistemic, environmental, and transitional justice viewed through a comparative lens. Some of these have already been mentioned, to something that's more interesting for me and a lot of South Asian scholars: post-colonialism and sustainable development, education, peace, conflict, and memory, education policy. The list goes on. So this openness is really important in inviting different perspectives, different kinds of contributions. I would really encourage scholars from not just across the world, of course, but also from South Asia, which is my focus, to send in their proposals. I think this is an ideal opportunity to promote South Asian conceptual and theoretical perspectives on education as a way to move beyond a Eurocentric lens, and we have that space being created through this series. I can make different forms of innovative methodological contributions, and I hope scholars will feel that they have the freedom to challenge, conventional approaches to educational research as well. So this is really a space where we're open to different ideas, to new ideas, to even thought of, moving away from Eurocentric theories, which largely have dominated in the past, and hopefully we are moving sort of beyond that with the kind of work being done. So this is that space for you. Please do reach out to us, do write to us. And I, like Julia mentioned, I'm really excited. Cannot wait to read your proposals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And of course, it's one of the great privileges of being involved in the editorial board that we get to work with people like you on an ongoing basis. So thank you so much for those reflections. I'd now like to invite my colleague, my friend and resident maestro, Dr. Artemio Cortez, who has various talents, from being an expert in teacher quality and advanced quantitative methods to being an outstanding guitarist. But it's the former and his position as a postdoctoral researcher that we're interested in at the moment. So over to you, please, Artemio.
Thank you very much, Leon, for that lovely presentation. I don't deserve all those adjectives, but thank you for those. Hi, everyone. I'm also very excited to be here today and grateful overall for being invited to be part of the Editorial Advisory Board. This opportunity to contribute to the Bristol Studies in Comparative and International Education is personally relevant, as it means to continue a highly successful project of one of my most admired mentors of the master's degree, Professor Michael Crossley. It also takes on relevance given that it is its express intention to support early career researchers from the Global South, like myself, which will benefit both the South and the North by stimulating new research and opportunities. The aim of the series of creating positive change in society, challenge injustice and inequality is ensured by opening up dialogue within academia and beyond. As well as an early career researcher, I am a teacher who understands the valuable contribution of knowledge production through the lenses of theory and established methodologies primarily grounded in the European schools of thought. Nevertheless, I have also witnessed academics' frustrations in their attempt to grasp, classify, predict, to name a few adjectives, of the complex and ever-changing phenomena in the schools. It is increasingly more evident that what works in one place might not do so in another, and it has taken us many decades to understand that context matters. At this junction, I see new and promising directions for comparative and international studies in education. I see many colleagues from Latin America and all over the world adding to this series in a more transversal manner than other academic spaces are willing to provide. This is the spirit of the School of Education at Bristol, and it has always been. A few months ago, my wife, who is here in the audience, Carolina Valladares, and I wrote a short blog for the CIRE Center, where we celebrated the life and contribution of a Mexican scholar who taught alongside Professor Crossley in the late 1980s. Oh, by the way, by coincidence, I have that blog here in the chat if you want to check it out. So let's continue this legacy of mutual support and understanding, and let's together expand the reach of Bristol Studies in comparative and international education. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Artemio, for that. And we really appreciate your contribution to our advisory board. Thank you. And next up, we have Dr. Ziba Nwako. And Ziba is a core member of our CIRE Centre, the Centre for Research and International Comparative Education at the University of Bristol. And her doctoral research was in the area of gender and higher education in Nigeria. And she really, in that process, pushed the boundaries, both in terms of a substantive focus and the use of post-colonial feminist theory. But she also has a background as an activist, for want of a better word, in the sense that she has been involved in the NGO world and in various social movements advancing the interests of girls and young women and people of colour. So it gives me enormous pleasure to welcome you, Ziba, to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Leon. Thanks for that. Hello, everyone. So I'm speaking here today with two hats on, out of the many that I have. One as an editorial advisory board member of this book series, and the other as one of the co-coordinators of a community called Doing a PhD in Africa, a community of early career researchers that was set up to support each other, studying at different institutions on the African continent, and to contribute to improving access to quality doctoral study for African scholars within and beyond the continent. Some of the members are here today at the book series launch, and I welcome them especially. I'm glad that the book series aims to cover new and promising opportunities for comparative and international studies in education, because early career researchers on the African continent, and I would imagine other parts of the global south, do face a number of challenges and barriers to publishing in high-ranking, in quotes, journals. For example, there's a lack of practical training in writing for publication, in identifying even suitable journals to publish in accessing up-to-date literature due to subscription barriers, often institutional. In some cases, we find that researchers from the global north work with those in the global south, but exclude their names when they publish. And we see this happen time and time again. However, I mentioned journals earlier, and I would continue to question why journals are seen as the ultimate currency in academic scholarship. My first sole authored publication was published in an edited book. So I'm really glad and delighted that this is a book series. And secondly, that it sits in the home of the Bristol University Press, which is a long-standing and respected name in the field of academic publishing. To end my little bit, therefore, I would issue a publication, first to the Bristol University Press and to the editorial team. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that the book series is able to mitigate in some measure some of the challenges that I mentioned earlier. And then to early career researchers to boldly take advantage of this opportunity and of the high quality and inclusive support that you will receive for your scholarship ideas and for your publication plans, whether as sole authors or co-authors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ziba, for those words. Really useful and informative. Thank you. So last up, we have my good colleague, Dr. Raphael Mitchell. And Raphael, many of you know, has done exemplary work looking precisely at the issue of capacity building and publishing inequalities, really, particularly as they relate to the global south and to the African continent. So it's very appropriate, Raphael, that you're able to speak today. So over to you.
Thanks, Leon. Yeah, I'm delighted to talk to you today about this this series. And from my perspective, let me tell you what's important about it. So, given global disparities in knowledge production around education, which we're all aware of here, there's an urgent need for more research and greater visibility and impact of research from the global south, reporting the knowledge, voices and perspectives from southern contexts, and in particular, as Leon and others have said today, from my perspective, in particular from post-colonial contexts in Africa. So why? So in the absence of research from these contexts, which is visible and accessible around the world, what we have is business as usual, which is universal statements about best practice in education based on theory and evidence from the global north. And we see this again and again and again. As Michael said 30 years ago, we see it now, which doesn't consider the socio-cultural and material context of education in the south. And I just want to pick up Ziba's point about the importance of books. So I'd worked as a teacher educator, curriculum developer, and school improvement advisor in various contexts in the global south for a number of years before I'd come across really any evidence from those contexts, before I was confronted with that. And in fact, one of the first things that really challenged my thinking in this area was a book. And it was a book which is, again, it's over 20 years old now, but it's a book by Clive Harbour and Lynn Davies about school management and effectiveness in low and middle income countries. And this was the first book, this was the first time, having worked as a practitioner across these contexts, this was the first time I'd actually seen evidence from various countries in Africa being mobilized to draw lessons for practice and policy in these contexts. So books, I think, are really, really important. And as Ziba says, although articles seem to have greater currency in academia, books are still important means of getting message out to people for whom it matters. So that's what I wanted to say. Now, what's the importance of a northern-based publisher in this endeavour? Well, I've got another book here. Sorry, I've got quite limited books here. Most of them are in the office, but here's another book. This is another important book from Ethiopia. It's with multiple contributors from universities across the country. It's a very nice book, but it doesn't have an ISBN number. It's not available outside the country. You have to go there if you want to buy this. You can't even get it posted to you from Ethiopia. So this is one of the important reasons why I really got a lot of hope and aspiration from this book series, that this will be drawing on scholarship and scholars from the global south and drawing lessons for policy and practice which will be used. That said, and I think a northern publisher like BUP is very well positioned to raise the visibility and impact of that scholarship. That said, I have a concern around affordability. Having worked in these contexts in Ethiopia and elsewhere, affordability is a big issue. This Ethiopian book, is affordable within country, and it's used in universities there. This is my concern, and I'm really grateful to hear Philippa talking about the importance of low and no cost access in the global south as a potential for this book series. And this is like a concern that's always in my mind. Is it going to be accessible and available to people who need it around the world? So so thank you, and I'm really delighted to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Raphael, for that. And I think you illustrated there very clearly why a book series of this nature is so important. Okay, so I'd like to take this opportunity, first of all, just to thank our speakers today, but also to invite people to ask questions. I think you'll agree that we've had some very stimulating inputs that we very much hope have whetted your appetite for the series and hopefully stimulated some questions. And please do feel free to contribute It doesn't have to be a question, it could be a comment or anything you'd like to say really about the series and what you've heard. Christy and Philippa have posted in the chat various links that are useful. So Philippa has posted in the chat information about where you can find the Author Hub, but also where you can access various information about the series, including the flyer for the series and the information on making research available in low and middle income countries. She's posted a useful link there. So do have a look at the chat. But in the meantime, I wonder if we've got any questions from members of the audience, anything at all you'd like to say. If you would just like to speak, it's quite an informal event. Please do just raise your hand and you're very welcome to make a contribution. Otherwise, feel free to post anything in the chat.
Hello, Leon.
Yes, Michael.
I'm sort of just reflecting upon Raphael's sort of points made at the end there, and just wondered if we could tease a little bit more out of Philippa, but put Philippa on the spot wherever I'm looking for a photograph on a video above, just to say a little bit more about different ways in which Bristol University Press might be able to assist us to make affordability, affordable publications available, particularly in the global south. Philippa, I hope I haven't caught you on the hop there, and trust you're still there somewhere.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I mean, I think the link with Research for Life is really important for us. That's a really important organisation for helping make, so that works via ebooks, and all our books are available as ebooks as well as print versions. So through the ebook, low and middle income countries can have access at low or no cost through that scheme. I mean, we would also look at co-publication arrangements with local publishers. We'd be happy to discuss those kinds of arrangements with authors. And I think another thing that we're really looking at the moment is open access. And I realise open access has lots of challenges in terms of accessibility and affordability. With the current book processing charges system, obviously that makes open access a very expensive option, but there's lots of really interesting developments going on in the open access space that we're keeping a very close eye on, and there could be possibilities there. And I think open access offers a really exciting solution for this kind of series in particular.
Thank you very much for that, Philippa. That's really, really helpful. So I wonder, any other questions for the panel? Okay, we've got one hand up there. Let's see, who's that? That's from Unkobi. Professor Panseri, we're really delighted that you're joining us today as a former doctoral student in the school and now an eminent scholar in your own right in Botswana. Please, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Prof. Tikly. And first of all, I want to appreciate the invitation to this forum, and also to recognize Professor Crossley, yourself, Chair, Angeline, Barrett. I'm recognizing you for the impact that you've made to my career in particular. And I also want to thank all speakers that have spoken here. And also want to appreciate the presence of my colleagues. For instance, the red side there, you can see in our country, when you say Mr., we say Re. So Mr. Tsai is there. We also have Simangele Makore is one of our colleagues in the University of Botswana. There was Robert Sipambe. We also had a colleague from Kenya, Dr. Chuma. I think he just went or left the meeting. And really I want to appreciate seeing colleagues in this forum and also to have been invited to this presentation. I want to say, Chair, that the issue that one colleague mentioned about co-writing, co-authorship, perhaps for us who are, at the early stages of our career is very important. And also for my colleagues that I invited who are beginning scholars, that would be very important. It's important that they've been introduced to this British series. They begin to know what the world, the academic world is all about there. But if we can also encourage the co-authorship so that, we gradually get to introduce our, our young scholars into the academia and get them grow. Briefly, I want to say thank you so much for inviting us and also thank my colleagues for joining. Thank you so much.
Can I just say a word while Nkobi's still there? It's wonderful to have you in our house at this very minute because your presence is here and it's been a while. Lovely to see you and great to have you on the Editorial Advisory Board. Keep well.
Yeah, just to echo that, it only seems like yesterday since you were here with us in Bristol, and it's so nice to see you again.
And to keep those links with the University of Botswana and the University of Bristol, that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, but please do encourage your colleagues, if they do have some exciting ideas, please do submit a proposal. Okay, do we have any other questions? I see another hand up. So it's quite a long participant list, so it takes me a little while to scroll to see whose hand is up, and it's Camilla. Camilla Chowdhury. Please do go ahead, Camilla. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm a doctoral candidate at the University of Cambridge, and my research focuses on Pakistan. And my question actually stems, I don't know if it's a question or a suggestion or just a point, but one of the things that in my reading that I find is often I find a paper or a journal article that has a really interesting title. And it's something it's not just a title that's catchy, but it's a title and a focus, perhaps even an abstract that really is asking a critical question. And it's from researchers that are based in the South, working in context in the South. But then as I continue reading, I realize that some of the analysis or the research findings loses its criticality. And without trying to sound arrogant or feeling that people that perhaps those working or researching in the North know better, there is, to my mind, that gives a scope of perhaps a need for mentoring, because obviously they've hit on an idea, but they perhaps haven't got. I don't know whether they've got the skills or the thought or whatever. I mean, I think it varies from context to context, but it seems to me that there's a real scope for working alongside writers that may want to contribute from the Global South to journals, because that contribution to knowledge is critical, because their knowledge is tacit, lived knowledge, but they perhaps don't have the right vocabulary or the right tools to bring to it. And it seems to me quite sad that sometimes they perhaps get rejected or don't go into the right kind of area. So I don't know if it's a question or a thought or a comment. And thank you for giving me the time to say it.
Not at all. It's very welcome and extremely useful, actually. Thank you. That's a stimulating contribution. Thank you. We have somebody who would like to talk, but unfortunately, you're on screen. All I can see is PhD in Africa. So excuse me for not introducing you properly, but perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, hello everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Titi Ajayi. I work with Ziba doing a PhD in Africa, which is why you see that name on the account. So I've been listening intently, and it's just occurred to me that many of the issues that you're talking about, interspersed with all of these debates that are currently ongoing about decolonizing and greater equity in academia and all of this. So I'm just wondering, I know your focus is education, but I'm curious about any prospects for cross or multidisciplinary work addressing the same issues. Thank you.
What a fantastic question. Thank you very much for that. And I think the short answer is yes. But I'd like to invite Michael to respond to that, or any other member of the editorial board who's with us. To what extent are we interested in interdisciplinary work?
A quick response from me is, yeah, we even have it in our sort of flyer blurb that it is interdisciplinary sorts of studies that we are encouraging and supporting. And I think the point I'd want to make is that we're wanting to cross all boundaries between theorists, policy, and analysts and policy makers, practitioners, and so on, in a way of strengthening the depth and realism of our analyses of educational issues worldwide. For me, that cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, cross-fields dimension of our work and our book series is really fundamental and important.
Great, okay. Time is against us, unfortunately. We must close in a couple of minutes, but I would like to just smuggle in one last question from one of our outstanding postgraduate students in the school, Ugbad Aidid. Ugbad, you've asked a question, perhaps in the chat, perhaps you'd just like to articulate it in your own voice.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I know I asked the question late. I just want to say thank you all so much to all the speakers. It's sounding very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcome. I think I just want to touch on what I think it was Julia who spoke about how we're aiming to ensure that there are different forms of academic writing that aren't sort of imposed by the standard academic norms, if that makes sense, in that, if there are important pieces of work carried out by Global South researchers, it isn't overlooked or by the board, or due to it not being, for want of a better word, the same as or in the same format as other pieces of writing. And I'm not sure if I explained that right. Let me know if I need to make that clearer.
No, I think that's very clear. So, to what extent are we going to be governed by Western norms in terms of publishing standards?
Yes.
So I wonder, Julia or Angeline, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I can briefly offer some thoughts and then over to Angeline and others. I think in part that's our job, Ugbad, as the series editors, to work with and mentor or not, learn from and expand and make space for these contributions, and to work with Philippa and Bristol University Press and our reviewers. I think the review process is something that we're involved in as series editors as well, and it's our job to make sure that these proposals are sent to appropriate reviewers and to manage that review process as well. So I think that it's our responsibility to ensure that we can make space for other diverse forms of academic writing or not, or expand what we mean by academic writing as well, I think. And one thing that we're discussing a lot, we don't have news yet because there's quite a few challenges around publication, but we're really interested in thinking and keeping a conversation open about translation and language as well, because of course publishing only in English is one of the challenges and exclusionary practices of academic publishing. So that's something we're aware of, though we don't have a clear, here's what we're going to do about it yet, but I just want to reassure people that that is an ongoing discussion for the series and with BUP.
Great, thanks ever so much, Julia. Well, we'll have to stop there, otherwise we'll all turn into pumpkins. So we better stop. But just to say that, you know, just to take this opportunity to, first of all, acknowledge that Professor Chege has joined us, has been with us for the last while.
Oh, wonderful.
We just to say, Fatima, we really appreciated your video contribution and everything you had to say. We're so pleased that you're able to be on our advisory board. So just to acknowledge that. And just to thank everybody so much for your contributions to various members of the panel speakers today, and especially to all of you who've taken the opportunity to come along, and to our publishers, Bristol University Press, for making the series possible, but also this launch today. And a very warm thank you to Christy Smith, who has once again facilitated today's event in such an exemplary way. Christy, we continue to treasure you and to appreciate your efforts for the school. All right, well, everybody, go well, stay safe, and please do submit those book proposals. We're very interested to see them. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. And Leon used the word smuggle. I'll just smuggle in a thank you to Leon for chairing so many people within an hour. Well done.
Thank you. Bye-bye.